I know fire. It's a relationship I've had for 30 years working with this element. I know it better than I know most people in my life, as a matter of fact. And on June 29th, 2015, I had a fire that would not light. 3 days later, I would find myself in a jail cell with 3B felonies. Orange County, Indiana. They had me on cultivation, distribution, and possession of psilocybin mushrooms. This is not an episode about mushrooms. It's about the thing that you are doing right now. If you're a founder, an entrepreneur, a creative, a business owner of any type, this episode is speaking directly to you and the mistakes that you're making right now. That night the fire fought me, and I got it lit anyway. Determination can get about anything done. But is that really how we want to be working in our lives now? In the immediate, I patted my back. Good job not giving up. As a matter of fact, that's the skill that had gotten me exactly where I was at that time. And it's still a skill that serves me today. Yet there's an important lesson in this story that all of us who are in any project creation or leadership capacity need to consider deeply. Now, to set the stage a little bit, this was a ceremony that I was leading that would ultimately be the impetus for my arrest. Another thing arose as this ceremony began to get underway. One of the individuals I was holding space for, the person who was the impetus for the ceremony's happening, came to me just before we handed out the dose and said, "Eric, on the way here, a dead cardinal was in the road before me." She said, "I popped over a hill and all of a sudden there it was, a dead cardinal right in the middle of the road. It was her favorite bird. It was what she considered her spirit animal." And she said, "Do you think it's a sign?" Well, after the experience with the fire, now this, I knew that it was a sign. My chest tightened, my body responded, and I still said, "I'm sure it's nothing." I didn't miss the signs. I received them, and I chose differently. This wasn't ignorance. It was ego. Full blast. Now, this is important, I know, for those who are business leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, and creatives, because we spend our lives not listening to the signals around us. We bring things into being by sheer will. We see evidence in front of us, and we go in the opposite direction. This is a virtue, as a matter of fact, as a founder. Your persistence against contrary evidence is central to how you have gotten to where you are. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But there is something deep to consider here. Now, everybody knows the story of Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, these people who have defied all odds to bring products, creations into this world that everyone said was impossible. I've done the same. While on probation for this arrest, I started the world's first psilocybin mushroom retreat in Treasure Beach, Jamaica. I smuggled mushrooms to Jamaica to get those retreats off the ground. It was something that everyone said was impossible. Yet my intuition, my heart, told me that it was. Not only that, but that I was meant to do it. And that required a great deal of muscle of will. There were so many things that did and still do try to stop me. The same can be said for the sacred mushroom community that my wife and I have co-founded. But here's the thing. This modus operandi only works until it doesn't. And there are times when it simply won't. The biggest question that I have found in this work over the years is when to listen to that voice inside and when to tell it to quiet itself. And the word that I come up with is conviction. Now, when you have a conviction, when you know in your heart that a product, a community, a service needs to be brought into this world, and you feel that in the depths of your core, that is conviction. But when you have that potential hire who seems right, but something just feels a little off, and you hire them anyway, well, that is actually ego. How do we know when it's ego? Well, when we feel that tightness like I felt that night, when I felt that constriction internally and my head pushed forward, thinking it was courage, thinking it was determination, but it wasn't. It was a lack of willingness to listen to the truth that was trying to come out of me. It's the same truth that told me that these retreats needed to be born into the world. It's the same truth that told me that this sacred mushroom community needs to be brought into the world. And we get confused. It's understandable. It's part of the territory. We spend so much of our lives overriding signals from the outside. We spend so much of our attention hyper-focused on the destination that we don't often pay attention to the signs around us. So how do we know when it is intuition that is trying to lead our way? It can be seen as a softness. Even though you have a determination to bring certain creations into the world, there is a relaxation, an internal sense of opening that this is the time. Your head may have that same push, that same drive that I love so much. I feel it right now with this current project that I just began as a global initiative to celebrate the life of Maria Sabina. I feel the passion, the mental challenge of it all. And at the same time, I feel an openness in my heart that I know that this is the right thing to do. Now, if I felt that same drive and felt fear and anxiety around it, or felt any kind of tightening within me, that would be a red flag that I would need to pay attention to. As a matter of fact, it came up yesterday as I was exploring promoting this event. Initially, it was an idea that came to me in my meditation over the weekend. I posted it on my own personal social media pages. It got great visibility. Hundreds, almost 400 people shared the initial post. Thousands of people liked it. It's already off to a great start as a worldwide initiative to celebrate the life of this amazing individual who brought sacred mushrooms to the world. And yesterday, I had a moment's hesitation. What happens when I, as an individual, am promoting a felony? It's very different than when an organization who is set up as an advocacy group advocates for your right to consume this sacrament, this compound, in your own free will. And so I listened to that. I learned my lesson. Now, there have been other times where I did not, where I didn't integrate the lesson of that cardinal, where I didn't integrate the lessons of that fire, and I ignored my intuition, where I've hired people who I knew were not a good fit, where I've taken on partnerships and engaged in cooperative projects with people who I knew were not a good fit. And every single time it came to some kind of disaster. And I know that you have the same experience. If you are a creative or a founder or an entrepreneur, or even just someone managing a family, managing your own personal life, there are times when your intuition screams at you, do not go there, do not talk to this person, do not engage, and yet you do, because you have that determination, that willpower, This is something that we fetishized as a culture, willpower. Now, again, I'm not saying that willpower is necessarily wrong, but when we override that inner sense, that's a problem. So I want you to think about this in your life. Where does this show up? Are there relationships that you've gotten into that you knew were not going to be healthy for you? Were there people who you brought onto a team or hired that you knew everything on paper looked right, and yet something felt off and you ignored that? That is not failure. That is data. That's information optimization that you can look back at, feel that sense in your body, and understand how to approach it differently next time. This is really powerful in considering conversations with our loved ones. Very often, how many times do you have the desire to prove that point? You want to say the thing that you know is it's gonna seal the deal. It's gonna set that person on track. Now, this might be a employee, this might be a friend or a lover. Something triggered you and you got angry and you want to prove a point. But there is something deep down inside you that knows, even if it's true, even if the point that you want to prove is correct, that to do so is going to bring more harm than good. You see, this is a lesson that we can apply across our lives. We are daily being presented with opportunities to listen to our intuition or to our ego. Now, I patted myself on the back for getting that fire started, and it landed me in jail. I know without a shadow of a doubt, had I listened to my intuition and not held that ceremony, that the individual who the ceremony was held for, who ended up fleeing the ceremony out of paranoia, nothing happened. Nobody did anything that was wrong. She just got paranoid, as sometimes happens. She army crawled in the dead of night to her car. Even though we had her keys, she had another one magnetized under the bumper. Out of nowhere, orange taillights lit up the driveway, gravel flying from underneath of her tires. I watched her. She drove half a mile down the gravel lane, turned onto the main road, and drove a couple of miles out of sight. I was terrified. I knew in my heart, I felt with almost certainty, not only was I going to jail, I was going to go to jail for manslaughter. That is how important listening to our intuition can be. Now, thank God that's not what happened. Thank God she was safe. Nobody got hurt. And we all learned an extremely powerful lesson. And I want you to take that lesson. I want you to apply it to yourself. Where are you patting yourself on the back for pushing through, but it's costing you? Now, I want to be honest with you. I did not learn my lesson that night. This event that led to our arrest, the irony, had I listened to the external signal. So this is, for us business owners and creatives, this is so valuable. There are definitely times when it is extremely important for us to listen to external sources of information. So she drove off. A couple hours later, when I was able to drive, another crucial mistake that has never been made since then is that everyone had consumed mushrooms that evening. A few hours later, when I was ready to drive, we went looking for her. We drove an hour and a half to where her boyfriend lived that we knew of, trying to see just anything. We had called and called and called, no answer. And all this is told in the book that I'm soon to be publishing, self-publishing, and there's a link in the show notes here where you can register to be notified when that book is available. It's called The Psychedelic Reformation. We drove and we never found anything of her. It baffled my then girlfriend, now wife, Courtney, and I both. Around 5 p.m. that next day, we got a text from this individual, said, "I'm fine, I just need some space." So, we thank God. We swore to never sell mushrooms on the black market again. I'm not proud to admit that was something that I did for several years in order to make ends meet while I was attempting to launch a gourmet mushroom farm, Magnificent Mushrooms. We get the message, we go home, drive an hour and a half back to our farm in Indiana, and when we arrive, there's one neighbor in Amish country, flagged me down while he was mowing the yard and said, "Hey, yeah, so the sheriff was just here looking for you. Said he heard there was a mushroom party that got out of hand last night." So the individual who drove off never told us anything about this. We panicked. We did everything we could to get rid of all of the evidence because I was having at that time a significant underground sacred mushroom grow. And we cleaned everything impeccably. I had a massive bonfire. That night, the fire did light immediately. And I had an incredibly huge fire burning everything save 1 pound. Here's where I didn't listen to the external wisdom. Courtney, she said to me, "Eric, don't you think you should just get rid of that pound? You can grow more." I said, "No, this is my sacrament, and they will not take it from me." That was the first time that I ever spoke those words, calling mushrooms a sacrament. It wasn't until then that I knew the force of my conviction with sacred mushrooms. If you can hear that siren in the background, I'm going to keep going. So I took that pound of mushrooms, I took them out in my woods, and I put them in a tree, along with some cannabis paraphernalia. 2 days later, on July 2nd, police showed up again with warrants while we were there. There were a number of officials, state, county, and local police. It was quite an entourage. They showed up with warrants. They searched everything. They found nothing. And at the very end, one state trooper, young man with an attitude, said, "I know you've got weed growing out in these woods, and I'm going to go find it." I said, "Go right ahead. There's nothing out there." There was no cannabis in my property. Not that I was growing anyway. And so he went out. And I sat there confident, too confident. Maybe 15 minutes later, he showed back up with a bag full of mushrooms and my paraphernalia. Somehow, I still do not understand how, without a dog or any tools that I know of, he found all of my possessions in that tree, in that hollow tree. That was when my life changed immediately. Everything else up to that point had been fear, had been warnings that your life can change immediately. I didn't listen. And I didn't listen up to that last point where Courtney said, "Eric, you can grow more." I didn't have any protections. I had no RFRA that we currently employ from our Constitution now. Handcuffs were slapped on, and we went to jail. And I want you to understand, if you're not aware of this already, I'm sure you are. But in case it hasn't shown up in as drastic a way, one single chance, one time of not listening to the messages that are coming through to you, to the wisdom that is seeking you in your business, in your family, in your friendships, in your relationships of any kind. Ignoring that one time can lead to life-changing, drastic repercussions. I wish I could say that I immediately internalized that. I wish I could say that this is something that is second nature to me, but it is something that I have to stay aware of. I have a very powerful will. I create. I bring things into being that have not previously existed. I've done that 3 times now. I was the first person in multiple states around me to have a gourmet mushroom farm. When everybody said it couldn't be done, I taught myself, and God gave me a property to do it. I launched the world's first psilocybin mushroom retreat. Everyone said it couldn't be done. I did it anyway. We've built the best organized, most upstanding sacred mushroom spiritual community on the planet. Everyone told me it couldn't happen. And right now we're organizing a global dose day through Psanctuary to celebrate the life of Maria Sabina. I'm sure there are people that say that it can't happen. Well, I'm going to do it. We're already in the process of doing it. If it's something that you would be interested in participating in, well, this video will be the last chance, at least through my YouTube channel, that you have to be made aware of it. There will be a link in the show notes to join the live stream on July 22nd. I want to leave you with a consideration. I want to ask you the question again. What is the cardinal that you're ignoring? What is the fire that won't light that you're trying to muscle your way through? That is probably one of the most important questions that you can answer when it comes to your success. And that is what I want for you. I want all of us to achieve our wildest dreams. You were given those desires by the mystery that is creation. Whatever is coming through you, how beautiful is this? That it is God, it is Source, it is the mystery trying to bring something into being through you. Maybe it's the job that you know you should quit. Maybe it's not the thing that you know you should do. Maybe it's the thing that you know you shouldn't do. Nobody can answer this but you. And I'm not going to end this by just telling you to trust your intuition. That's just another platitude that you've heard over and over. And sometimes they finally stick. Sometimes we hear those things and they really click. What I'm going to ask you, what I'm going to leave you with, is an invitation to explore in your life where you're overriding that intuition. It's the opposite. You're not listening for the intuition. You're looking for where you're overriding it. Because this, as I've already said, and I'm going to say one more time, it's what we have taught ourselves to do as creatives. Somewhere in your life, there's a fire that won't start. Somewhere in your life, there's a dead cardinal that's screaming, stop. And you're not listening. I want you to listen. I want to invite you to quiet yourself and see how much better life can be. You're going to get there anyway, but we can get there the easier route. That's what I'm here to support you with. Most of the people that I've worked with over the years are not actually confused about what they want in life. They're confused about stopping the things that they don't want. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, you can visit ericsosborne.com. I thank you so much for your time here, and I look forward to seeing you perhaps in our community, perhaps in the comments, or wherever it feels right for you to show up.